I have to tell you, I am stupidly in love with Minx. Like, I saw the trailer for that. I was like, I need to watch the show. I immediately emailed somebody at HBO and I was like, please let me review that show. I feel like I was sort of excited for it because I just realized this morning, I was like, I remember when I was a stupidly closeted kid and I went to a Borders books and I stole copies of like Playgirl, anything remotely gay with men. And so I would probably steal Minx if I was,
There you go. That would be great.
yeah. Um, so I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you is like when you sort of read the script for that show, what was your first reaction? I know that's like a broad question, but I just feel like that series to me really jumps out in terms of what it wants to do and its point of view. So I was curious what your personal reaction to it was.
Well, it was a pitch.
Oh, okay.
Ellen brought us the pitch, and my history with Playgirl is that I was born in 1962, grew up in the 70s, and so I
Right.
remember when Playgirl came out. I had two cousins, older cousins, who were both women, and who that was a big deal. And my house was a very conservative house, and they wrote my
Mm-hmm.
father all up in arms. And remember when the Burt Reynolds thing happened in
Yeah.
Cosmo. Yeah. But I remember going into 7-Eleven when they would have those magazines and have like a sheet of plywood in front of them, and there'd be these forbidden things. So when Ellen came around with the idea for this, I was really intrigued
Mhm.
because I just kind of felt like I grew up around that, and also I like things set in the 70s because obviously that's my era.
Yeah.
And But what I liked the most, I knew it was a sticky idea, if you will, as we say in the
Yeah.
business. But I don't want, if you look at my filmography, I don't do anything that's kind of, dirty or dirty is the wrong
Mhm.
word, like sexual, overly
Yeah. Yeah.
sexual or lurid. And so that was my only hesitation. I was like, oh, it's just going to be a show that's just all going to kind of be based on titillation. But then when she pitched it and she pitched the characters, I was like, oh no, this is a workplace comedy. That's what I love about it. It just happens to be the workplace happens to be filled with naked people.
Yeah.
And so, but I love the dynamic between Doug and Joyce, and I love that she's, immediately said, like, look, this is not one of these will they, won't they shows. Like, this is not
Mhm.
about Doug and Joyce, almost having a relationship. This is it's almost like Mary Tyler Moore and Mr. Grant, from the Mary Tyler
Oh
Moore show.
God.
And that I was like, oh man, well that's awesome. And so just we pitched it everywhere. I mean, we literally pitched it all over town.
Yeah.
Ellen would drag these giant stacks of Playgirl magazines into all these theaters, spread them out, and everybody would be so excited to see them and go through them and look at the ads and the pictures and all that.
Yeah.
But nobody would buy it. Nobody would buy it. Every time we walked out, we completely sold it. And then the message, well, it's not for us, or we're a little worried about this or that. And it's like, fuck. And I was just like, this show's not going to sell. And it didn't. I mean, it was dead. And, we went into the pandemic. And I was just like, how could that show not sell? And then
Mhm.
out of the blue, we got a call from HBO Max. We got just like from the ashes, and it came back. And so
Mhm.
that's when Ellen went off and wrote the script. And that's when I read the script. I was like, oh my God, this is even better than she pitched. We just never looked back. And then it was just all about casting and making sure we had the right people.
Sort of saying Mary Tyler Moore and Lou Grant sort of by way of like Boogie Nights almost. That's what
Exactly.
like Jake Johnson. I think is like my favorite thing I've seen Jake Johnson do. And it's just sort of like he reminds me of I can't remember, I'm forgetting the character of his name, but that Burt Reynolds plays in Boogie Nights. I was like, he's so brilliant in this show. And I
Yeah. I
it's
mean, it just feels like the role that he was born to play,
yeah.
because he threads such a narrow needle, because we saw a lot of people for this,
Mhm.
and then because we didn't know Jake was available, and all of a sudden out of the blue, when we were kind of like, oh, what do we do? Is like, Jake Johnson's available. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And he's one of the only people I know that could just sell it and not make it sleazy, not
Mhm.
make it gross, but just make it this guy who's just like, I love my favorite line. He goes like, I'm the American dream, and it's
Mhm.
like, that's what's so great about it. This is a guy who's just a businessman who happens to be in a business that other people really put down, but he's probably smarter than most of them.
Yeah. And that's actually makes it so much more like frustrating and heartbreaking as a viewer with what his character does towards the end of the first season and how he's being blinded by this like gross man that's on his set, and he's being blinded by the potential of what the magazine can do sort of financially. That I think if you know, didn't have that reaction, like you wouldn't like love the character as much. Like I feel like it's sort of sneaky in the way that it makes you love the character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is susceptible to the trappings of potential success, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
as you know, so many of us have at certain points, you know, gotten pulled into something or made the wrong decision, thinking it was the right decision. But I love that Joyce calls him on it. That's what I love about the dynamic of the show is that, you know, kind of takes the first half of the season for Joyce to kind of find herself.
Yeah.
And then what she does is almost like she finds herself as Doug starts to spin out of control a little bit.
Yeah.
So she almost becomes the adult in the relationship. And it's such a beautiful dynamic that, you know, all the writers came up with. And then obviously Olivia and, Ophelia and Jake just nail.
I love Ophelia so much. I was just like, why? Something that I love, and I sort of, this echoes sort of in Welcome to Flatch too, that it's just, I like how a lot of things that you direct, I'm thinking of everything that, you know, that I can remember off the top of my head. I love how you have a really strong mixture of like, maybe we love Jake Johnson, we know Jake Johnson, but then there are some actors who, you know, we may not know or are unfamiliar with, like Oscar Montoya. I've already declared my love for him. I've never seen him in anything before. And sort of with Welcome to Flatch too, where we have Sean William Scott and Aya Cash, and then you have these sort of less familiar faces. Is that something that you always strive to do whenever you are sort of in the casting process?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If we can get people in who nobody's ever seen, who will just hit a home run, that's my favorite. That's what I love about TV so much. Because movies, even though I try to do it by movies too, it's a little harder because the studios want names and all that, and it's fine. You get to work with great people. But TV is really the place like Holmes. You know, it was when
she's so good.
She's so good, and what happened was, you know, we got the rights to This Country, the BBC show. Jenny Bix and I went out and, you know, and pitched it all over the place. Finally set it up at Fox. We were just, you know, celebrating, and then looked at each other and go like, how are we going to cast this? You know, because you know, Charlie and Daisy are so specific, and especially Daisy is so specific. It was like, well, how are we going to do? And I was freaking out, honestly, once it became real. But Greg Lubin, my creative executive in my company, came in one day and he goes like, I think I found her. I go, what do you mean? He goes, go on YouTube and look up Holmes. And not YouTube, I'm sorry, on Twitter. And she had all these videos of just her in her car talking to the camera as a different character each time. And it was just like, that's her. Like the humor is the same, but she's her own individual, you know, person. And she was the only person. I mean, that was it. Like we saw tons of other people. That was it. I mean, she was the one. And that just made me so happy. And then Sam, you know, came in, and Sam had done some more stuff. You know, Holmes was she's been doing just improv and stand-up in Chicago. And nothing makes me happier than to give somebody that opportunity and have them just completely.
Yeah. Well, it's also just watching her. It's especially on like a network comedy. I don't think I remember the last time I saw somebody where they had a really unpredictable quality as a performer. Like you can tell it's a quality that she has as a performer that she can put into a character, which is sort of crazy that she can harness that so young. And it's sort of like, I have no idea.
That weird confidence that some, you know, I was, you know, some people are just bred to be funny. You know, Chris Farley, his DNA was fun. Kristen Wiig, her DNA is just funny. Whether they want to be funny or not, they can't help it. And Holmes is the same way. It's just, she is just, everything she says when you hang with her is just hilarious. And, you know, and not like trying, it's just, it just comes off of them. And so she's able to inhabit this character, you know, and then this you know, the docu-comedy style, which is my favorite way to do television comedy, is so, it takes all those things away that might get in the way of a newer performer going on camera. You know, because you know, so the cameras are there like a documentary or like a reality show, and we're just covering things as they do it. So we're covering the whole scene. So it's not like, okay, here's your close up now. Okay, here, you know, so there's the pressure weirdly goes away just in the sense of that magnifying glass and action, you know, and they can just slip into it. I'm like, okay, go again, let's try it again, and you know, and so they get very comfortable and very, you know, at their full power, and we're just able to, you know, take that to the editing room and chop it all up.
Do you think it's helpful for an actor from a directing standpoint? Do you think it's helpful for an actor to have a sort of docu-series style where they can relate to the camera? Is that something that I mean, it gives them another scene partner, essentially. Is that something that you sort of lean into?
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much. You know, I want them to be hyper aware of the camera because, you know, that's always been my problem with quote unquote reality television is the idea that these cameras, I always say the only real reality show ever in the history of television was Candid Camera. Because people didn't know they were on camera, you know. So the minute there's cameras there, clearly you're going to alter how you act. Yeah, exactly. You're just, you know, you're going to be calculating what you do. But that's what we, you know, when I was doing The Office, it was always like, what's the spy shot? And I love that. And so bring that to this of like when, you know, if you see something in the foreground, you go, okay, they don't know we're on, and that's a different person. So, but the ability for them to have the camera and be aware of it, it's really fun because also it shows you who's good at it, who's not. You know, it's a skill to be able to throw those looks. You know, I mean, God, John Krasinski was like the king of just finding it in that moment. And, you know, and Holmes and Sam are really good at just kind of, you know, Holmes especially, she's just always like, she's on that camera, but as that character would be, she should just be hyper aware that she's always on camera.
Oh my God, that's great. Well, I will have to say that I live in Ohio.
Nice.
I live in Columbus, so I think it's the first shot of the series where Holmes is wearing a Columbus Crew shirt.
Yes.
I was like, I didn't know. I immediately grabbed my phone. I was like, is Flatch real? I don't know. So I feel like I felt immediately a very strong connection to the show. I grew up in a small town, obviously not as small as Flatch. I love how the beginning says Americans long for a simpler life in small towns, and I was wondering if you could tell me how true you think that is.
Well, I mean, I do think it's true. It's funny, you know, because my, you know, the original This Country series, you know, my wife and I were watching the show a lot, and she would just go like, I just want to live there. Like she loved everything about that place, you know, and how, you know, it just felt very small and manageable. And the fact that you know everybody, even though some people are just nuts, you know, and you try to avoid some people, you know everybody. And so there's something lovely about it. Myself, I'm more of a big city guy.
Right.
But,
me too.
But no, I think a lot of people really want that. Simplicity is too reductive of a word. I think just that manageable quality of, oh, I know everybody, you know, and this is comfortable, and I've got a routine, and that's really nice. You know, I think there's a large swath of the public that just really wants that.
Yeah. Okay. Something that I love that the show does that I wasn't expecting is, you know, throughout the episodes, that is something that works thematically is it talks, you know, they have these little facts that come up on the screen. The one that stuck out to me was almost a quarter of young adults have been raised in households with one or less parent. This makes the need for role models more important than ever. And I actually feel like that reinforces the sort of docu-style of the show. I feel like there are some shows on TV where they introduce the concept of, you know, the actors and characters being aware of the camera, and then it sort of just drops. But I feel like that is a really thoughtful point of view that the show takes, and I feel like it shows that the documentary filmmakers that are in Flatch are sort of, you know, they have something more to say, and they're really sort of incorporating the characters. How important was that to you?
Well, it's very important. I mean, that's a part of the original show, and Jenny and I were very much like, we got to keep that because I've had that. There's some you know, docu-comedies that are on. I love them, but there'd be a lot of times, my wife would do it all the time. She'd go like, why are they making a documentary about these people?
Right.
She couldn't get that through her head. And it's like, I can't really answer that, you know? So that's why it was just important to go like, there's a theme, we're exploring a theme. You know, look, the theme is always, you know, pretty loosely, you know, attached to the story, but there's enough of it, you know, enough touchstones to it that it helps make sense. And yeah, like you said, it just gives it that context. And I like to remind the audience why this is, you know, why we're there, you know, and it's just fun to give something a purpose. I love nothing more than when something frivolous that feels frivolous actually has a reason for existing, you
Mhm.
know, versus if it was just like, oh, we're just going to have these crazy people and just kind of, you know, be a fly on the wall and watch them. That's not because also because one of the biggest things for us is, you know, I grew up in a small town in Michigan.
Mhm.
Jenny grew up, you know, in New York, but she also lived a lot in this small town in Maine. And so we're, you know, we're from small towns, and I always want to make sure that nobody ever thought we were just making fun of a small
Okay.
town. You
Yeah, that
know,
makes
when we
sense.
first folded, that was a big concern of the network, and it's like we have zero interest in doing that. If anything, I'm the guy that has defended small towns from, you know,
Yeah.
Freaks and Geeks on,
Mhm.
and so, you know, so I think that helps contextualize it in a way too, to go like, here's why we're here.
Yeah. Okay. I was really surprised by Sean William Scott in this. I think I'm so used to seeing him as like a hot douchebag, and
Exactly.
that's what I've grown up with him being.
Mhm.
And I was curious about that casting. I think I knew that he was cast before you know the little pandemic started. You know, little blip, little incident that
Yeah.
happened. And I was curious if you had any conversations with him about trying something different, just because I'm so impressed with sort of his uh, approach to this character and his restraint in this.
Well, here's the thing. We were approached by Sean, by
Oh,
his
really?
people.
Okay.
Yeah, because we, you know, we set it up, and literally the first call we got from anybody was from Sean's people saying Sean's really interested in playing Father Joe. And Jenny were like,
Oh my God.
wait, like, did he read a wrong script or something? Because I, you know, because I love Sean, but you know, like yourself, you go like, oh, I know what he plays,
Mhm.
and so they were like, you want to meet Sean? I was like, well, yes, of course we do. And he came in, and you know, we were both kind of like, we'll just take this meeting, but this is not right, you know. So
Okay.
we'll, you know, say thank you. He came in and was so enthusiastic about it, and had so many ideas, and knew how to play it. And meeting him in real
Wow.
life, you go like, he's kind of that guy, you know. He's this enthusiastic guy, you know, the original father from the BBC show. He's more of this really lovely, doughy guy, you know, who's
Mhm.
just very sweet. But we like the idea that Sean brings that sweetness, but he's also, you know, kind of this handsome kind of farmer dude who's
Yeah.
kind of looking for love, and you know, but really desperately wants to help everybody. And
Mhm.
it was, I mean, within the course of a half-hour meeting with him, Jenny and I were like, oh, there's nobody else. Like, let's hire him immediately.
So funny. I don't know. I think it's really exciting when you have an actor who sort of subverts your expectations like that.
My
Whether
favorite in the world.
whether it's you know them for 30 years as one sort of type, and they come in with like the last two roles they have is sort of completely different. I think that is so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, total. I mean, that's my favorite thing to do, is to show another side of somebody. You know, like
Yeah.
Jason Statham in Spy, and you know, with Chris
Mm.
Hemsworth in Ghostbusters. Is like I just want to show people, look how, or you know, or Michelle Yeoh in Last Christmas is like,
Mhm.
look, these people are funny. You don't expect it, because I go off of my first time I meet somebody, and I'm like, you know. You meet Michelle Yeoh, is like, oh my God, she's like a goddess, and you know,
Yeah.
and she's also she'll kick my ass, and she's probably really serious. And then I meet her at dinner, and she's the most fun, gregarious person I've ever met. Like, I want the world to see that person, you know. So I
Yeah.
get excited about that.
Oh God, that's amazing. Okay. Sort of going back to Minx, I guess one last question. I didn't realize we were talking for 20 minutes already. I'm so in love with everyone that is also behind the camera who wrote a lot of the episodes of Minx. Like, I love Rachel Lee Goldenberg. I
Oh
think
my,
I did not know she directed I think the first three episodes.
yeah, she did the pilot. I mean, she set our look, and
uh,
she crushed it. I mean, I was just like watching that pilot, like, oh my God, did she nail it?
she can really sort of establish like a time and place visually really well. Like, I love I'm Pregnant. I love Valley Girl from the last couple of years. I guess, why do you think there's nothing with, or no shows or movies that really sort of go for broke with like the female gaze like Minx? Just because I think that was a lot of the reactions from the show. I mean, obviously they're just naked dudes everywhere. And I mean, I had the pleasure of speaking with I spoke with Lennon, and I spoke with Carly from the makeup department, and they're just so enthusiastic to have this sort of point of view told
Mhm.
before. So I was just curious. I mean, you're a man, so I mean, I'm just curious your perspective of like why this exciting, fun show hasn't been told yet.
I wish I knew, I mean, blame Hollywood, I mean, this is my company, my two companies are just all about, finding great three-dimensional roles for women and,
Mhm.
women's stories. And it's just, I think, male nudity has been so taboo for so long, you
Mhm.
donate a woman until the cows come home, you put a dude's, dong on the screen, everybody flips out. And it's really like it's just this weird old puritanical view in an otherwise pretty liberal and
Yeah.
out there town. And I think some audiences have had issues with it in the past. I remember when my friend Jake Kasdan did Walk Hard, and he had some shot, and there's some scene in an orgy when he's talking.
Yep.
There's a
Guy like right here.
yeah, there's a
Yep.
like there, and he said he'd be in the test screenings, and women be like, "Oh my God," they would be so upset and stuff, or at least the ones who were vocal, where they like, "We got to take that out," or So I think just in general, people have gotten really nervous about it. The irony is, I didn't realize there was a bunch of other shows that were doing it when we were putting this together, and so now all these articles about the new male nudities everywhere. It's like, oh shoot, I thought we were first, but. But no, but it's I think look, everything's opening up now, and everything's slowly cracking open
Mhm.
in a good way. Not
Yeah.
I think gross stuff is going away because people are speaking up against it finally.
Mhm.
But then stuff that should be there that was considered to be, oh no, now people who were women who were underpowered to see the things they wanted to see are now going, we want to see it, and now they get to see it, and now the world, Hollywood, sees that it works and it draws an
Mhm.
audience, and once something draws an audience and makes people money, you're going to see a lot of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think I did see an article that it was just, I think the headline was quite literally, "Is this the golden age of the television penis?" or something like that. I was like, I think it is. And I feel like you can say with Minx does it bigger and better than anyone else. So
There you go. Well, we definitely do it in the most fun. I have to say.
yes, definitely. All right, Paul, thank you so much for your time. I'm obsessed with like everything you do. I have to say a simple favor. Good God, when I'm normally a type of person where I'm just like, oh, I call it like gimme culture, where people are like, I want another one of this. But as soon as I heard, there was going to be a second film, I think I screamed out loud.
Oh, good.
I think that show just smashes expectations and smashes the lines between genres, and the costumes. My God, the costumes. And I just think Blake and Anna have such incredible chemistry, so I cannot wait.
No, they're great. No, we have a really fun story script for this. So let's hope it happens. You never know in this town.
Yeah, you never know.
We're feeling pretty good. So
yeah, in the meantime, we can watch both of your wonderful, great, thoughtful shows. So
excellent.
Thank you again for your time. I'm just pushing the shells on everyone that I know. Anytime they ask me for a recommendation, I was like, here, you can watch Small Town Life and Porn in the 70s. So great.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
High and low. Exactly.
High and low, yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Stay safe and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Joe. You too. Thanks so much. It was really fun talking to you.
You too. Bye.